So this is my 1970 Dodge Challenger. A little over a year ago, I got done swapping in a 5.7 liter Gen 3 Hemi I pulled out of a 2005 Dodge Durango. And ever since finishing the swap, I've struggled with the power steering. I kept the factory Durango power steering pump and plugged it into my factory style Borgeson power steering box. And so far I've blown out 3 different pumps. One driving on the freeway, one about halfway down a drag strip, and the third one during a period of prolonged engine revving. But finally, after a lot of research and a lot of wrenching, I think I finally have it fixed. All right, I'm gonna rewind a bit, take you back to some junkyard scavenging a few months back, and I'll show you how I fixed this thing. I'm actually headed to the junkyard right now, and I'm hoping I finally have a solution to this power steering problem that I've had ever since swapping my Hemi. Man, I've searched and searched online for any sort of information on how much pressure the stock Gen 3 Hemi power steering pump puts out. So I finally, after tons of research, came across a little bit of information that I think might be the answer to my problems. Apparently, supposedly, the Hemi pumps are built by Toyota, or maybe they at least use the same supplier as Toyota. So if you pull out a pressure release valve from a Toyota car, you can actually revalve your Hemi's pump to match like an older style power steering box. There's actually a lot of cars to choose from, and each have different pressures. So you're looking for valves from something like a Toyota Camry, and luckily these things are very, very common in the junkyard. I double checked before driving out here, and it seemed like they had maybe 100 Toyota Camrys here, so I think I should have my pick of cars. I'll find something with low miles. All right, we're looking for the import section, specifically 90s Toyota cars. All right, so I found a ton of these cars already, but this one seems like the first one I've come across that I actually have a chance at getting the valve out. The power steering pump's really hidden behind the engine. I think this is a Toyota Camry. There's the valve. Here's the spring. All right, here's another one. I think I can get to the pump. This is like a 2001 Lexus, I think. All right, got this valve out of here too, just in case the first one doesn't work out. All right, so first step is to pull out what's left of my power steering pump here. Belt is already off because it ejected itself on the freeway. So I got that going for me, which is nice. Look at that thing. That pulley just sheared right off. This little, I don't know, shaft or whatever. I suppose something seized on the inside and the belt just tore that shaft in half. It's pretty wild. I kind of want to pull this valve off, and I want to make sure that it does have the same valve in here. I'm not entirely sure, but let's get this thing off of there, and we'll see if this theory is correct. The valve looks slightly different, but I don't know. I wonder if it's just kind of configured differently. Let's pull these guys out and we'll take a look. All right, so this is the one I pulled out of the Toyota Corolla. And this guy came out of the Lexus. I don't know, man, they look different. To me, that thread looks different. It's such a bummer, man. It just does not go into this pump. I really expected this pump to to match up with these valves, but I guess it doesn't. I know that there is a difference, a part number difference between the Ram truck style pump and the car pump. So I know that a car pump mounts right here on the head, and the truck pump mounts right down there, like below this radiator hose here. And I do need the power steering to go back into this place here. But it seems like the bolt pattern is the same. It's oriented a little bit differently. It seems like it's clocked a little bit inward on the car pump and clocked a little bit backwards like this on the truck one. So maybe I can go grab a car pump and see if I can use these valves for it or something. I guess maybe we'll go grab one from the car parts store and see what we can do. All right. And we got ourselves a car Hemi power steering pump. So this one was from like an early Charger. I think they're all the same. Let's see how similar it is to this guy. Well, on first glance, these two pumps do look very, very similar. That's awesome. I might get lucky here. There's two other measurements that are very, very important. One is the bolt spacing here, which I'm pretty sure is okay. That's pretty easy to test or to check, I guess. So center to center here, roughly spot on. It seems like the mounting holes are just kind of very luckily. Oh, check that out. Toyota. It's kind of funny. Yoda. So it seems like the bolts are going to line up. It's going to be pretty much exactly the same height. With this reservoir on here, I can't really measure this one well. I guess I can set it on the box. There we go. Look at that. They're like exactly the same. Maybe this one is just slightly shorter. Yeah, just slightly shorter. So the last measurement is the shaft for the pulley here. I mean, I don't know. It kind of does look like it's a little bit bigger on this guy. The reason I can't use a Charger pulley is that that's actually a 6-groove serpentine belt, and the Ram truck uses a 7-groove. So I would have to find some sort of special pulley that's 7-groove and that has the diameter that this guy does. But before I worry about that, let's check out what diameters we're dealing with here. 6.643. And ooh, yikes. Oh, that is a little different. 6.29. So it's slightly larger here. All right, well, I'm not going to worry about that just yet. The real question here is what this valving looks like. If it looks like this, then that's a problem. But if it does look like this Toyota stuff, then I think we're in business, and we'll go ahead with trying to get this guy to work. I don't believe it. It does seem to be the Toyota pump. This thing looks exactly the same. Yes, that's such great news. I'm so happy to see this. I kind of thought that I was digging stuff out of the junkyard for no reason there, but it does look like it uses the Toyota style. We have a D imprinted on this guy. We have a C on this one, and this guy's got an E on that one. So we have a C, D, and an E. I'm not sure if they get more strong as they go up or down or what. I know the E came from the Toyota Camry, so I kind of feel like that one's probably the lowest pressure. It's definitely the lightest car. The C came from a Lexus, and the Charger's a pretty heavy car too, so I would expect that one to have pretty high pressure power steering, but there you go. That's proof. The Toyota Camry valve does fit into a Hemi car-style power steering pump. Now that I'm looking at this thing, I wonder if my power steering reservoir would fit on this Charger pump. That's too good to be true. Let's take this thing off and we'll see if it fits. All right, well, can't win them all, I guess. This port on this guy here is just a lot bigger than the port on this, and the bolt holes here don't line up. I saw this one bolt hole and I got kind of excited, thought maybe that would fit, but that's okay, not a big deal. I'll just end up getting some sort of cool looking, fancy, like welded aluminum reservoir to sit, probably somewhere around here. All right, so it's a new day. It's actually many days later I've collected a bunch of parts. I'm hoping today we have everything we need to finally get this new power steering pump set up. I got myself a new power steering pump pulley. Luckily enough for me, it seems like the later model Hemi Durangos, so like maybe 08 or an 09, something like that, they actually did upgrade the input shaft size here. It's almost identical. It's like just a hair, like a 1/1000th of an inch smaller. So I kind of felt like this was gonna press on okay. I also got myself a remote power steering fluid reservoir. Nothing too special about it, but I chose it because it has AN fittings, which is gonna work perfectly for my setup. There you go. I have a charger pump, a late model Hemi Durango pulley, I have an aftermarket reservoir tank, and then I have a valve from a Toyota Camry. So this is a true Frankenstein power steering setup. So I guess I'm gonna start throwing this stuff together. Fingers crossed that it all bolts up and lines up. All right, so I think I got everything set up here. I got this belt back on. The pump pulley looks good on the belt. I guess we'll see in a minute if it has trouble when it's actually spinning. All of the AN fittings are all tightened up, so yeah, I think we're in good shape here. The first thing I want to do is fill this guy up and lift up the front tires and, turn the steering wheel back and forth a bunch of times to try and bleed out as much of the air out of the system before I start this thing up for the first time. All right, so I did take this thing for a quick spin around the block, and the steering did feel a little bit tighter. Not much as I was hoping for, but I do have two other valves. I might as well give another one a try. It's actually not too hard to get to. It's right there on the bottom of the pump. I got this guy out of here. So I had the E valve in there. I have a D valve right here, and then I have a C valve. I'm almost positive that the E valve came out of the Toyota Camry, and the C valve came out of the Lexus. I would think that the Lexus would be the heavier car, but maybe they put the lower pressure valve in the Lexus for like a heavier steering feel or something like that. I want to go ahead and try this guy. We always have the D valve as a plan C, I guess. Plan D. There you go. The D valve will be the next one if this one is really terrible, but I'll get this guy cleaned off a little bit, and we'll make sure to put the same spring we got on here, and we'll see what happens. All right, well, we got this thing going, and I will say the steering wheel is maybe a little bit harder to turn now. So I'm thinking that this C valve is a lower pressure valve, which gives a little bit firmer steering feel. And I don't know if I'm seeing things, but it kind of seems like there's more fluid squirting out of this guy, like noticeably more fluid, I guess being recirculated, which would make sense. I guess the more fluid that's getting crammed into this thing, the higher the pressure, and the more that's getting bypassed, the lower the pressure. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and take this thing for a spin, and we'll see how it feels. All right, I just got back from my test drive, and I would say actually it feels pretty nice. I wouldn't be upset if it was just a little bit harder, but definitely sort of within the range that I was going for. I really hope this now saves my power steering pump from self-destruction. So I guess for now I'll have to call this kind of tentatively fixed. Hopeful is how I would describe it. And I guess I'll have to give you guys an update after I put some miles on this thing and see how this new setup holds out. All right, well, I was hoping to be done with my power steering troubles, but unfortunately my pressure line burst after just a few days of driving. Luckily it happened right here outside the garage, so it wasn't too big of a deal. I also checked the fluid temperature after about a half hour of normal driving, and it was at 250 degrees, which I think is a little bit too high. Anyway, I have some parts. I'm hoping today might be the day where I finally fix this thing. The first thing I'd like to do is replace this supposedly high pressure AN line. So what I did was I went ahead and I went down to this tractor hose supply store, got this bad boy made. This one should be good for, I think, like 5,000 PSI. It's a little bit of a overkill, but definitely will never have any risk of blowing this hose apart again. Now the next thing I want to do is set up a power steering cooler for this thing. And of course I did research, these little coolers that you place somewhere down here, and it's like maybe about 12 inches wide, maybe like a dual pass cooler or something like that. And I was about to buy one of those things, but then I kind of had an epiphany. I realized that this radiator that I bought came equipped with an automatic transmission cooler. They don't make like two different versions of the radiator, one without a cooler, one with a cooler. Instead, you just kind of ignore the fluid cooling part at the bottom if you have a manual transmission. But, I can pretty easily adapt those to AN6 with a couple of these guys here. These are pipe thread to AN6. And I can run the low pressure side, which would be this return line right here, to the radiator. It'll go through the radiator and hopefully cool the power steering fluid down, out into this reservoir here, and then back into the pump, of course. Basically, I'm going to try and use my radiator as a power steering cooler. I did some research online and I didn't really see any reason why I couldn't use the radiator as a cooler. So let's give this a try. I'm curious at what temperature it keeps the power steering fluid. So I'm going to hook this all up. We got our very long AN6 line here, which is going to go from the pump, just like that, over to the inlet or outlet, whatever, one of the ports on this guy. And then I think I can reuse this guy and plug right into the other side of this one. All right, I got all of my hoses plugged in. So I have the high pressure one going to the pressure side of the pump over there, right there. And I have this low pressure side going all the way around there, plugging into the radiator. And lastly, I have the other side of the radiator going into this reservoir, and the reservoir going back into the low pressure side of the pump. So I hope I have enough fluid. I think I have like a couple of quarts. So let's get this guy filled up, and I suppose I'm gonna have to do a whole ton of bleeding because this thing's gonna have all kinds of air. Yeah, I already know I definitely am gonna need some more fluid. All right, let's see what we can do. Just got done with about an hour drive. The cooling temp is at normal full temperature, just over 200 degrees. So let's take a look at the power steering temperature.